Hello, today we show how refactoring affects schemas. So I'll create a simple app here. First, some definitions. A private schema is a schema defined in a streamer operator. A named schema is a schema given a name and on the Definitions tab. A named schema may also be available via an import. A private schema is editable in the element where it is defined. A named schema is editable in the Event Flow Editor's Definitions tab. When you change it in this one place, it changes everywhere it is referenced. Note that this is not editable anywhere except the Definitions tab. As a tuple moves through operators, its schema may be changed and no longer match the named schema. This is fine and expected. The named schema is just a starting point. As long as the schema does not change through the flow, the tuple is transferred by reference. When the schema does change, then the tuple is transferred by copy, which is slower and creates garbage for the JVM garbage collector to clean up. Now let me show you what refactoring does to schemas. We'll start with a locally defined schema. I'll refactor the map. Note that it says input and output streams have been added to enable connections to the module. And we have a private schema. The private schema has been copied into the new module, which means now if we change the schema here, it will no longer match. If the parent has a locally defined named schema, refactoring copies the referenced schemas into the new child module. Unreferenced schemas are not copied. Notice it now says Studio has copied named schemas to the new module. So now we check inside the module. We have a data schema and it is defined on the module's Definitions tab. This is slightly better in that now we have a named schema, but if we go back to the original, the schema is still defined in two places. Even better is when the parent has named schemas from an import. Refactoring does not duplicate the schemas in the new child module, but copies the import in order to provide schemas. It uses the same import as the parent, so unused imported schemas in the parent are also imported in the child. The refactor duplicates the import. Let's see what that looks like. New, and we'll create an interface. Add a named schema. On the Definitions tab, we'll add the import. I'll do a bit of cleanup here. We are done with Demo Module 1. Ctrl-L to clean up the layout. Now we have this saying there is an unused import. Let's fix that and use the new one. We are now using all the imports and we see in the output stream the carried schema. Now let's refactor. Just to remind you, we have a data schema and a my data schema. Refactoring here. We see it is using my data schema. We only have the imported schema. The unused schema was not included. And also, this schema is not defined locally, but only defined from the import. So now we have consistency between the parent module, which takes the schema from an import, and the child module, which takes the schema from an import. So now the schema, if you edit it in one place, ends up changing wherever it is referenced. What if we start with a private schema and we'd like to turn it into a named schema? Let me reset this. We'll start with a private schema and no named schemas. Let's demonstrate how to refactor a private schema to a named schema, and then how to turn that named schema into an imported schema. The first step is, we're starting with a clean application. with a private schema. To turn this into a named schema, choose Refactor, Extract Named Schema. The dialog identifies where it is in use and allows you to change those in one refactoring step. Now if we look at this input stream, we have our new named schema. And if we go to the Definitions tab, we have the definition of our named schema. So that's all good. We know from previous work that if you refactor elements into a child module, that this definition will get duplicated. So what we want to do is prevent that by turning it into an imported schema. So we right-click on it and choose Refactor Move. It wants a destination, and right now we don't have a destination for it. Cancel out. New, Interface, Schemas. Here is a new interface to put the schema into. Now, Refactor Move, and we can now pick Schemas as the destination and click OK. So now in Schemas, we have our data schema. In our original, we have now replaced it with an import from Schemas. Studio briefly says invalid import. No items named data schemas exist in the application. This is a temporary problem. Save your work, hit F5 to refresh, Control F5 to refresh the type-check environment, and Studio is finally caught up. The error has gone away and we have our import, and it's showing up. Studio did catch up with the change. We have successfully moved our private schema into a named schema and our named schema into an import from the SB app to an SBInt. Some final points. 1. If a schema has a parent schema, the parent schema is a named schema and is copied or moved using the same steps. It is automatically carried along with the same steps. 2. If a schema has tuple fields with a private schema, start with a named schema and flip to tuple, then the private schema is copied in place. Let's say we had a private schema and a special field here of type data schema. If you look on the output stream, it is showing as type tuple. And on the map, type data schema. So we're looking at Studio being somewhat inconsistent in reporting a field as a known named schema. If you find a schema that is a named schema and has been flipped to tuple, that's fine. Refactoring will just duplicate it. 3. When creating a named schema from a private schema, the dialog attempts to discover all top-level, not tuple field, uses in the current application and replace them with a reference to the named schema if possible. We saw that, where refactoring a private schema, changed the input stream to refer to a named schema that came from our import. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe, and of course, if you have any comments or questions, you can contact us at support.tibco.com or visit us on our community pages.